The Battle of Zama, fought in 202 BCE, is regarded as one of the most pivotal engagements in ancient military history, and it was the decisive clash that ended the Second Punic War. It took place near the town of Zama in present-day Tunisia. It pitted the Roman general Scipio Africanus against Carthage's greatest general, Hannibal Barca. The battle was a historic military clash and a symbolic meeting of two of antiquity's most illustrious leaders. Rome's victory at Zama cemented its dominance over Carthage, ended nearly 2 decades of brutal warfare, and shifted the balance of power in the Western Mediterranean, laying the groundwork for the Roman Empire's future growth. The Second Punic War began in 218 BCE, following Hannibal's siege of Saguntum, a Roman ally in Hispania. Hannibal then went on to win a series of stunning victories over Roman forces in Italy, including the battles of Trebia, Lake Trasimene, and Cannae. These battles devastated Roman armies and threatened the Roman Republic's survival. However, Hannibal's inability to receive consistent reinforcements from Carthage and his decision not to march on Rome allowed the Romans to regroup and adapt. Rome's strategy shifted gradually under commanders like Quintus Fabius Maximus, who avoided open battle in favor of harassment and attrition, earning him the nickname Cunctator, or the Delayer. Meanwhile, Rome's young general, Scipio, became prominent in Hispania. He expelled Carthaginian forces from the Iberian Peninsula throughout several campaigns. He later proposed a bold strategy: bring the war to North Africa and force Carthage to recall Hannibal from Italy. Scipio invaded Africa in 204 BCE and quickly became successful. He allied with Massinissa, a Numidian prince who brought a powerful cavalry force. Scipio's night assault on the Carthaginian Numidian camps and his victory at the Battle of the Great Plains in 203 BCE decimated Carthage's last armies on African soil and prompted desperate peace talks. However, Carthage's political climate remained divided. Influential factions, unwilling to accept Roman terms, persuaded the Senate to recall Hannibal from Italy and reappoint him as commander in a final attempt to save the war. Hannibal returned to Africa after over 15 years in Italy, bringing the remnants of his experienced but diminished army. Upon his arrival, he began recruiting new troops, including citizen levies, mercenaries, and war elephants. While some veterans remained loyal, most of Hannibal's new forces lacked experience and training compared to his Italian campaign veterans. Nevertheless, his return provided a psychological boost to Carthage. Scipio and Hannibal eventually converged near Zama Regia, not far from Carthage. Before the battle, the two commanders engaged in a rare and significant event of personal negotiation. Both parties left the negotiation knowing the battle would ultimately determine their country's fate. The precise location of the battlefield is unknown, but it is thought to have been a flat plain suitable for cavalry maneuvers and large infantry deployments. In earlier battles, Hannibal had benefited from narrow defiles and wooded areas, but the terrain lacked them. This would be significant because the open space favored Scipio's tactical approach and gave Massinissa's Numidian cavalry more freedom of movement. Hannibal arranged his forces in 3 lines. The front comprised mercenaries from various regions, including Gauls, Ligurians, and Spaniards. Despite their combat experience, these troops were frequently unreliable and prone to desertion if morale dipped. The second line consisted of Carthaginian citizen levies and local African infantry. The third line, held in reserve, consisted of Hannibal's Italian veterans, hardened soldiers who had survived years of campaigning. Hannibal positioned approximately 80 war elephants in front of these 3 lines, a terrifying but unpredictable weapon. Scipio's forces were meticulously organized in the traditional Roman triplex aces with 3 lines of heavy infantry, Hastati in the front, Principes in the second line, and Triarii in the back. These units were formed from his veteran legions and allied Italian contingents. Scipio strategically deployed his cavalry on his flanks, Roman cavalry under Laelius on the left, and Numidian cavalry under Massinissa on the right. Scipio commanded approximately 30,000 infantry and 6,000 cavalry. Hannibal's force was similar in size, but the quality and reliability of his troops varied greatly. Hannibal's elephants advanced first, initiating the battle. However, Scipio had anticipated this move. His troops were ordered to create lanes between their maniples, allowing elephants to pass through while being targeted with javelins and missile weapons. Loud trumpets and horns also confused the elephants, causing some to panic and retreat into their lines, primarily on the Carthaginian left flank. Scipio's cavalry took advantage of the confusion, engaging and routing Carthaginian cavalry on both flanks. Laelius and Massinissa pursued their opponents off the battlefield, leaving the infantry to fight without support, an ironic reversal of many of Hannibal's previous victories, in which Carthaginian cavalry superiority was decisive. Following the elephants' disruption, Scipio advanced his first and second infantry lines against Hannibal's front and second lines. The battle was fierce. Hannibal's mercenaries fought hard but lacked coordination with the second line. As the Romans moved forward, disagreements and confusion arose over Hannibal's first two lines. According to some sources, the second line hesitated to support the mercenaries and even attacked retreating troops, causing chaos within the Carthaginian ranks. Scipio recognized the disorder and advanced his second line to reinforce the first, thereby maintaining pressure and cohesion. The first two Carthaginian lines eventually broke, leaving Hannibal's veterans as the final obstacle in the rear. These were some of the war's most formidable troops, trained, experienced, and devoted to their commander. Hannibal directed them forward to face the Roman main line, showcasing their resilience in adversity. However, Scipio did not rush into the final clash. He reorganized his troops, allowing them to rest and reform before launching another assault. This pause demonstrated remarkable battlefield control and discipline, highlighting Scipio's army's professionalism. The final phase of the battle featured a lengthy and evenly matched battle between Hannibal's veterans and the reorganized Roman infantry. Neither side gave in easily. The veterans fought with grim determination, knowing the stakes. However, the tide shifted with the return of Massinissa and Laelius. After defeating the enemy horse riders, their cavalry circled back to the battlefield and attacked Hannibal's veterans from behind. Even these experienced troops could not hold out when surrounded and attacked from both sides. The Carthaginian line collapsed. The defeat was total. Carthaginian casualties were high, claiming up to 20,000 killed and an equal number captured. Roman losses were significantly lower but not insignificant, given the intensity of the fighting. Hannibal survived the battle and retreated to Carthage. He advised the Carthaginian Senate to seek peace there, admitting that the war was lost. Following the battle, Carthage filed for peace. The terms were harsh, but not annihilative. Carthage was forced to surrender its fleet, accept a few ships, hand over its war elephants, pay a massive war indemnity over 50 years, give up all territories outside of Africa, and agree not to wage war without Rome's permission. Massinissa was confirmed as king of Numidia, further isolating and weakening Carthage. The once proud city was reduced to a client state for Rome. The Battle of Zama had an enormous impact. First, it signaled the end of the Second Punic War, which had lasted 17 years and brought Rome to the brink of destruction. Second, it ensured Roman dominance in the Western Mediterranean. Spain, Sicily, Sardinia, and Corsica were now entirely under Roman control, and North Africa had been effectively neutralized as a military threat. Third, the battle propelled Scipio to legendary status. In recognition of his victory, He was given the agnomen Africanus and became one of the most revered figures in Roman history. Generations of people studied his tactics at Zama, which included flexibility, anticipation, terrain use, and timing. And Zama also demonstrated the maturity of Roman military doctrine and the efficacy of Rome's changing military system. For Carthage, the battle marked the end of its status as a significant power. Though the city survived for another half-century, it would never pose a serious threat to Rome. After briefly serving as a statesman, Hannibal went into exile and died years later while pursued by Roman agents. The Battle of Zama marked the end of the Second Punic War and was one of classical antiquity's most significant battles. It was more than just a military engagement. It was a watershed moment that changed the ancient world's geopolitical map. The conflict between Hannibal and Scipio represented two opposing visions of warfare, strategy, and empire. With Zama, Rome established itself as the undisputed master of the Western Mediterranean, charting a course for imperial expansion to shape the ancient world for centuries.